Good morning. How are we doing today? My name is James Sweeney, aka Split Suit. Welcome back to another video. Today I'm joined by Chris Warren. Chris, ready to rock and roll through a pocket queen's hand with me?
Ready as always.
All right, let's rock and roll. All right, playing 25 and L 6 max. Under the gun opens, but we're four-handed in this moment. Here decides to three bet with queens out of the small. As usual, I'm going to get a little bit nitty on the sizing here. I'd prefer this be a little bit larger, probably something in like the $2.50, $3 ballpark. Don't really see too much of a reason to go just 225 here. Kind of in the same thought process.
Totally agreed. Yeah, we don't want to be playing hands out of position, so especially 100 big blinds, if we can disincentivize this, larger raise sizes are totally fine. We don't care if we get folds.
Exactly. Excellent. So Anna getting a fold from the big blind. Under the gun, razor calls. Go heads up to a 7-6 deuce rainbow board. Here decides to c-bet for $2, about 40%-ish pot. At this point, totally normal, totally standard sizing for me. I don't really see much reason to take another line. I don't see any reason to check call necessarily or check raise, so kind of just stick the normal fire, and smaller sizing looks totally fine overall given kind of what's going on texture-wise. Any other thoughts on this spot?
Yeah, we check a decent amount of our overcard hands in this situation just because they can have a lot of, setted hands on this 7-6 maybe that we should have less frequency of. So, we're not going to be c-betting as much as widely. We're going to be mostly c-betting our overpairs. And so larger size makes sense.
Excellent. Perfect. So we end up getting called by them. Go to a 9 of diamonds on the turn, and Hero decides to continue firing, this time for 450. So, what are your thoughts of this stage in the game? I mean, 9 is not the greatest card in the entire world, yet another pocket pair that now banks a set. Pocket 8s is going to stick around for one more as well, and they just picked up some extra outs too. What are your thoughts of this stage?
Yeah, this is one of our, I think, standard important situations where we really should be checking this turn a huge percentage of the time, even with hands as strong as our overpairs here. And the reason is just this is a good turn for the calling range. They have probably more hands like sixes, sevens, twos. Now all of a sudden, all their hands like 9-8, 9-7, 10-8, all those have just improved a lot, either in terms of equity or now way ahead of us. And because of that, we just don't want to be betting this card a lot. That's just the reality of the situation. And yeah, we can actually still check raise, our strong hands here. So that will fit in well. And even if we were betting, I think we would need to bet a lot larger. Say you had a very loose wild opponent who could have like a huge range of hands here. You feel maybe you would be too passive and we want to bet. We need to charge a significantly higher price on this and bet something more like pot sized, because of the draw heavy texture of this board. We want to, if we were going to try and take advantage of someone who was going to give us a lot of value here, we need to be charging enough to make it worthwhile.
Yep, exactly. But I think overall, checking here against your normal opponent who you don't have that kind of information on is just going to be better rather than firing 450. And if you get raised, that sucks. There's going to be a lot of rivers that suck if you get called. Like, there's just other lines you can take here that are going to be more lucrative against your average opponent. In this spot, though, we do end up getting called. Do end up facing one of those super fun river cards, and here we are. And Hero decides to fire for 475. So pretty much the same bet size as they chose on the turn. What are your thoughts here? Let's just actually back up before we bet. Facing the 8, now suddenly we have 4 straight on board. We were ahead of pocket 10s, now we're behind that too. Everything in pretty much any kind of draw got there. Like, I mean, even like 6-5 got there. Like, this is just a really, really terrible, terrible river card to say the least. I'm not firing here. I'm checking this and kind of making decisions. Are you ever betting this? And if so, for what size?
Yeah, trying to think if I'm ever betting it. I'm just walking through what I would get to the river with. Having bet again, we should be very strong. So this really it actually is kind of the bottom of our range because we wouldn't be betting a lot of our overcards on the flop. If we did, they'd be probably things like with the backdoor draw, and then if we're firing again. So the only overcards we have, I would say, are diamond draws, which have pretty much no showdown value in this situation. So this is kind of our showdown value hand. This is like, oh, maybe they floated us with ace nine and a backdoor draw, or ace seven or something like that. And, we're just hoping on a prayer that they think, that we maybe have some showdown value. And I think we just have to check, like you said.
Yep, exactly. And I kind of find it funny whenever you're analyzing a hand, either in real time or later, and you're kind of like having to do that, really sifting through and be like, I hope I can find ace nine of spades or something. It's usually a good sign that you're probably maybe being a little too optimistic if you're trying to jam value through that door. Uh, yeah, but as played here, it did decide to fire and ends up facing a shove. So at this
Mm.
point, getting a little better than 3-1 on the pot odds, but I don't know, man. I don't know if I can find a call here. What about you?
Yeah, it's one of these classic situations where it's like, oh, like we know that they could probably bluff a lot in this situation, but the real mitigating factor is that like this is a player who called us pre-flop, they called us on the flop, and they called us on the turn. How many hands do they have that really don't hit this board? It kind of becomes just sort of a math equation at that point of just what are the hands that we beat? And there certainly are hands that we can come up with that they would potentially, play like this, but it's it's just not. We're towards the bottom of our range. Do we really need to call here? If we were going to call bluffs, um, something like jacks is better. Unblocking the diamonds is better. Pretty much everything about our hand, I think, for me, points to a fold.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're hoping to sniff out like King Jack of Diamonds or something like that, and I mean, just too much got there, and too much would feel comfortable shoving here, just thinking that you might get sticky if you had like aces or something like that. Uh, I mean, you're really hoping that they either turn like ace seven into a bluff, or I don't know, that they have one of those weird like backdoor flush draw combos, and I just don't think you're finding it enough of the time. So yeah, this would be a fold for me too. Hero does end up making the call though, and actually ends up being right in this exact situation. Opponent did have pocket jacks, which nice result. Always nice to double here, but yeah, this is a kind of a weird one. And again, like the major inflection points here is really that turn and going back to whether or not you fire that or not, because a lot of players think are going to default fire this, right? They're going to come up with the mentality of like, I don't want to let the four straight come off for free. This seems like a card where I could still try to max value from like tens and jacks and maybe like pocket eights, and I get that. But man, oh man, that is just like a not great card in the slightest. And then obviously as the river rolls off, that's even worse. But I think this inflection point and also the river itself, I just can't find a bet here. I mean, even if you knew your opponent could be induced, right? You could bet small to try to induce that Hail Mary shove. There's just so much in this situation that you're going to get clobbered by and just end up paying off because you're going to talk yourself into feeling like you have to, and then you're going to walk into tens and feel like an absolute dope. I mean, we feel like a hero when they happen to have jacks in this spot, but or ace seven or whatever. But this is going to suck way too often. But nice result for hero this time.
Indeed. And I think it's just a powerful reminder that when you're playing small stakes, crazy things happen. Like this is a pretty rare scenario, and you can't be results oriented. I think it's easy to walk away with this hand and feel pretty good. And um, really, we did make some pretty serious mistakes here, and we need to be able to sort of catch those when we're going through our play. And yeah, we can't get too tied to the fact that we doubled up here.
Yep, 100% agreed. Excellent. So I am not even going to try to attempt to say Hero's name here. He posted this in the Red Chip Poker Discord. If you'd like to post your own hand or jump into the conversation, you can always join us today at redchippoker.com/discord. But thank you so much for sharing this hand over there. Chris, any last minute thoughts?
No, I think we're wrapped.
Excellent. Cool. Thank you so much for hanging out today. If you have any comments or questions, don't hesitate to let us know. Otherwise, we'll see you back with another video shortly. And in the meantime, good luck out there and happy grinding.